Bloomberg have reported that Square Enix's share price has dropped nearly 15% following its latest earnings release, and Square have claimed that Final Fantasy XVI did not meet the high end of expectations. So following on this massive game that we've been seeing for years, well, a year, 2 years, following the release of it, the share price has shot down. Square Enix has had a horrible time. Now, I know, Davey, you like the financials. I've not looked into this too much. I was hoping you boys could kind of inform me of this. Obviously, we've kind of had a change of heart recently where we dig a little deeper into the news, and I'm hoping you boys have done that for me because I've not been well and I've not been able to do it myself. So today, I'm not a host of the show, I'm a listener as well. So I'd love you boys to give me that information. So who would like to go first? Who think top level? Who thinks stuff about this? Before we go too deep, just give me a little hint of news. Talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old.
Sure. Okay. I'll give you the little bit before we dive into the meat of what actually has happened. So, just like last episode, we were talking through how data, stats, everything can be miscrewed, and you can tell any story you want to tell based on what's happening. Now, it's very true. The stock price has gone down. Now, it's reported from Bloomberg with their analysts that it's due in part to Final Fantasy 16. Now, when I first read that, it made no sense because this is a game which, for the month it was out, was played by 50% of all PlayStation 5 owners. It counts to 50% of all playtime, beating the likes of Call of Duty for that month. So it doesn't really ring true how that could be the case. And that forced me to go and look into the financial report. Now, before I delve into that, top level thoughts, Bloomberg talking shit. They haven't done their due diligence. We're back around this fucking wagon yet again, where we are going through and digging into it. But that's the top level. Bloomberg talking shit.
Lovely, mate. Lovely. Phil, you got any little top level thoughts, little hints towards what we're going to be discussing?
Yeah, well, when I first read this, obviously it seems very, very negative. But I know last episode we made a promise to our listeners, our viewers, as you said in your introduction, that we were going to dig a little deeper, and we have on this one. And numbers can be a funny one, because I can tell you a figure and you might think positively, you might think negatively. I work in a marketing department and I know how this works because I'm very much on the spin with numbers sometimes. I need to do it. It's part of my job. And I feel like this is what they've done over in Bloomberg because they've got people talking about it. We're talking about it tonight. You guys are listening about it, and you're probably going to read the original tweet and you're probably going to read the original article when it comes to this. But I'll hand it back to you guys because we're going to delve a little bit deeper into the reasons why they've said that the price drop was nearly 15%, and it's down to Final Fantasy 16. That's what they're saying. That's the title of this episode, or this section of the show. This is the reason we're talking about it. And on the face of it, as I said, very negative, shock horror. Oh my god, Final Fantasy 16 has messed up. Terrible game.
I think moving on from that little top level bit of news, Davey, it's monologue o'clock. Give us the information, mate.
Ring a ding ding. Here we go, guys. So I have gone through and combed through the full financial release, which is the consolidated financial results for the 3-month period of June 30th, 2023. So this is what was released onto the Tokyo Stock Exchange and goes out to all the different investors and is the reason why this has taken a drop. Now, spoiler alert, it's nothing to do with Final Fantasy 16. Would you look at that? Crazy, right? So I'm going to read quite a bit here for you guys, and I'm going to break it down. So I'll give you the facts in terms of what's actually in this report across 2 segments, which is the analysis of consolidated business results, and then the digital entertainment spectrum in particular. So those 2 parts. So this is going to be quite a bit. I apologize that it's going to be quite a bit, but I feel like I need to really relay exactly what's here. Okay? So, for analysis of consolidated business results, the Square Enix Group is continuing determined efforts to strengthen the competitiveness and profitability of its digital entertainment, amusement, publication, and merchandising business segments. Net sales for the 3-month period ending June 30th, 2023 totaled 85,669 million yen, an increase of 14.4% from the same period of the prior fiscal year. Operating income amounted to 3.097 million yen, a decrease of 78.5% from the same period of the prior fiscal year. In foreign exchange rates, the weakness of a Japanese yen compared to the rate at the end of the last fiscal year has resulted in the booking of a foreign exchange gain amounting to 5.835 million yen. As a result, ordinary income amounted to 9.178 million yen, a decrease of 65% from the same period of the prior fiscal year. And profit attributable to owners of parent amounted to 6.3 million yen, a decrease of 65.7% from the same period of the prior fiscal year. So, anyone who doesn't know financial reports probably listened to that and thought, what the fuck does that mean? It basically means shit ain't going well across Square Enix. It means that game sales are up, the rest of the profit is down. However, they have noticed that they have managed to shave a bit off their business, so they're actually saving a little bit of money in terms of their operating income. That's the long story short. So, in terms of digital entertainment, here we go. This is the actual big juicer here. The digital entertainment segment consists of planning, development, distribution, and operation of digital entertainment content, primarily in the form of games. Digital entertainment content is offered to meet customer lifestyles across a variety of usage environments, such as consumer game consoles, including handheld game machines, personal computers, and smart devices. The HD, high-definition game subsegment's net sales for the 3-month period, ending June 30th, 2023, rose compared to the same period of the previous fiscal year, due to the release of titles including Final Fantasy 16 and Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster. In the MMO, Massively Multiplayer Online game subsegment, net sales fell versus the same period of the previous fiscal year. In the games for smart devices and PC browser subsegment, Dragon Quest Champions was launched in June, but the subsegment's net sales declined compared to the same period of the previous fiscal year because of weak performance from existing titles. Net sales and operating income in the digital entertainment segment totaled 62.375 million yen, an increase of 16.4% from the same period of the prior fiscal year, and 2.745 million, a decrease of 80.6% from the same period of the prior fiscal year, respectively. Now, what does that mean for us? It means that in terms of releases for physical games, they've had a massive rise here in these last 3 months. A massive rise. However, you've got to bear in mind that this entire fiscal year, you're talking they've had a tanker in Forspoken. So Forspoken's going to definitely take some wind out of the sails, but even with that, they've managed to still have a massive rise on this compared to the prior year because of Final Fantasy 16. Now, the reason why they are suffering a huge amount to their a drop in terms of their operating income, and when it comes to their share price, is down to 2 things. It's down to their smart device stuff, so their mobile games. They've been getting gobbled up by the competition. They explain in the report later on that there's huge growth potential, especially with the fact that Asia are now on board with all these smartphones and everything else. However, they're finding their games are not landing, and it's going to the very few successful titles that are in there. So they put a lot of money in getting a lot of ports and a lot of games that have come out to this. You think they had that Final Fantasy 7 Soldier game that came straight to mobile, that came out within this period of time. None of them are finding an audience. So they're hemorrhaging money from that. And then the very popular Final Fantasy MMO in Final Fantasy 14 has started to go on a downwards trajectory. And that's now 2 quarters in a row that has seen a declining player base. And that's in due part to the fact that there hasn't been any new content for it, no new kind of like big expansions, but they're just noticing this. And so you remember a little while ago, we said that they'd opened the doors in terms of having like free trial months for people to get in. That's a way for them to try and rectify it. It's the reason why they've teamed up with Xbox now to bring it to a whole other side of entertainment, because they're struggling in these areas. And with this operating income going down, these 2 subsegments, which did make up quite a substantial chunk of their return, with them having like 84% drops, it's had a huge impact to their bottom line. And that is why investors now are losing confidence in the fact that they've got a huge moneymaker with an MMO, which now isn't making the returns it was. That's the bottom line for it. What it meant for investors is that because of this outlook, this kind of bleakish outlook, they've had to cut dividend payments. So the dividend payment has gone down from what they projected it would be to the markets. And that has in turn then lost investor confidence. People trying to get out now because they're not going to get the same dividend returned they once would. So that is the actual story. That's actually what's happened. But it's much easier to put it and say, Final Fantasy 16 didn't sell very well. Well, in fact, actually, you can't have your cake and eat it too, is something we've said on this podcast before. And the fact they put it exclusively to PlayStation 5, PlayStation have paid for that. They've helped support them with development. You don't get all that and then get to have every single sale imaginable. But to feel that it's charted where it has, that it's done as well as it has done on the PlayStation, where it's getting up there. I mean, Christ, the stats for this, that in the USA, it was the top market for activity, taking a third of total players. 13% of PS5 players overall have played the game. It's the 6th biggest title by monthly active users globally on the console in June. And for 3 days following its launch, it was beating out daily active players for FIFA, Fortnite, and Call of Duty. I mean, that's fantastic results. Absolutely fantastic results. But that's not enough to carry a company like Square Enix, where you've got titles which come out and don't hit, like Forspoken. All these mobile releases that they've put all this money into to try and crack that market. You can't have everything. And if you fuck up enough times and your MMO starts bleeding players and it starts bleeding returnable income because there's not enough new content for them, these things are going to have an impact on your bottom line. And that is exactly what has happened here. Now, I've gone through quite a lot here. Any thoughts on this, guys?
Mate, you should be doing audiobooks, or you should start a podcast. You've got a great voice when you're reading out information. Jesus, you went deep on the hunt there, didn't you? When we said we looked into the facts, we looked into the facts. So I looked into the facts as well, but a little bit more higher level. And I've got 3 key facts here. And we're going to play a little game of how you put a little bit of swing on some numbers, okay? So stick with me, guys. So my first key point here is that Final Fantasy 16 sold 3 million copies within the first week. Now, is that positive? Is that negative? Now, it all depends on spin, doesn't it? And it all depends on your expectation. Now, what we feel at the moment after reading what was posted in Bloomberg is Square Enix obviously had massive expectations. So 3 million might not be a big number, but for a different company releasing a different game, 3 million would have made the game, and we'd be screaming and we'd be flying the flag for that company because they've done very, very well. Now, Final Fantasy 16, it was in line with Final Fantasy 7. But what you've got to take into consideration here, Final Fantasy 7 had a larger player base because it was on PS4. So you've got to dig a little bit into the numbers and the reasons why. So that's a very positive thing if you understand that the PS4, obviously larger player base than the PS5 at the time of release of Final Fantasy 7. And on to my last one, Final Fantasy 15. That was the fastest selling compared to Final Fantasy 16. But here's the kicker, guys. Final Fantasy 15, that was across multiple platforms. It wasn't just on a larger player base. This was across multiple. So of course Final Fantasy 16 didn't keep up with Final 15. So these are the types of figures that people are looking at, reacting on without any context. And I feel like this has led us to this report, and this is why people are burning their sticks, going out in mobs and going to knock down Square Enix's office.
You're totally right. And it is very much a case of thinking about how that success is kind of built on. And as you said, when it's on to a solo platform, it is what it is. We were celebrating the success of God of War. It sold 5.1 mil in its first week, right? Great. It's on PlayStation 4 as well. You know, if that was just on PlayStation 5, how much lower would that be? Substantially lower. Because you know, you've got what, like 120 odd million PS4s out in the wild. And now we've just crossed the line of having 40 million PS5s shipped. So to have that kind of attach rate in like the first 3 days where it sells 3 million, insane. Absolutely insane. And to see it's like charted now, a month later, it's coming in at number 6 on the chart. It's still holding. And as more word of mouth goes out and we get to like Game of the Year and stuff like that, we'll see how this builds. But you can easily, as you've explained there very well, Phil, you can take these facts and figures and just put them in a totally different limelight. You could say, there's 40 million. Why is it only sold 3? It's like, cut 3 million in 3 days. What, you fucking insane? Like, that's great. Final Fantasy ain't GTA, you know? It's not going to be doing those kind of numbers. So you've got to be realistic with these things. And I think this is definitely another one of those things of, I'm glad that we've gone that little bit deeper and tried to relay that information for you guys so that you can make an informed decision on what you believe and what you feel is true. Now, Spence, I've gone through a lot. Phil's obviously gone through a lot there as well. What are your thoughts on all this?
All I think is just how outrageously scummy it kind of was from Bloomberg to report this the way they did. They probably did do that information as well. They probably knew the facts, but they thought that won't get us clicks. It's the same as the tweet we mentioned earlier, where something's just come out, it's been in a negative way, people are going to give it attention. And that's exactly what Bloomberg's done. Nothing to do with FF16 in the slightest. FF16 is selling gangbusters. Everyone adores the game. It's doing amazing. It's just the lack of content for the MMO. That's probably the big thing, and the mobile games. And that is it, really, which is to be expected. You can't expect someone to still be playing an MMO with no added new content years later in an environment where we're getting brand new games basically every day, games are just getting better and better. People are going to be playing other stuff, and it will cost Square money. It's a very competitive market at the moment. And with the recent release, like you said, of Forspoken doing abysmally bad, because it was a dog shit, annoying game. Not even just a bad game, it was an annoying game. I think it is just to be expected. And it's as much as it does suck for Square, I don't appreciate Bloomberg reporting it the way they have, especially not for Bloomberg, who are usually quite faithful as to explaining reports and stuff like this. So I'm surprised to see it from them. It's definitely kind of a push Square or a Twitter article that I would expect. I'm not happy that I've seen this from them. I expected better.
Well, you think about Bloomberg were also the ones that said that PSVR 2 was off to a really bad start. And they were quick to say that, and then the report actually came about the sales, and it was like the best-selling like wired headset ever, right? So, you know, Bloomberg, their analysts, whoever they're paying to do this analysis, is totally way off. I think this is something now that whenever you see a Bloomberg report, whenever it's a case of they've put analysts on it, we got to dig in. We have to, because now it's twice in a row now that they've talked shit and they've just been wrong. So, you know, I think that in terms of them getting clicks on an article and being able to rev up the console war, well done. They've achieved it. They've really achieved it, because the Xbox fans are going wild, saying, "Oh, I told you should have put it on Xbox day one. It would have sold at least 2 more copies." It's like, come on, like, fuck off. It's an easy way to be able to get people outraged on this. It really is. And that's exactly what they've been able to achieve yet again. And unfortunately, I think this is now going to become like a recurring segment on the show where we just call this out and try and dig just that little bit deeper for the audience. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, it might be a bit much, me going into a full financial report and reading 2 paragraphs from it. But I hope that you guys have found it enlightening, you know, and you've been able to glean what you can from the figures. And remember that we're portraying the figures in a certain way, and I'm making my assumptions based on the fact that the dividend's dropping and that the MMO income isn't what it is and the mobile games segment isn't what it is. So again, I've kind of made my analysis based on this, but financial reports is something that I see all the time with work. I'm very used to them. So this is definitely not double Dutch language for me. Now, guys, this does pose a question in terms of the future of Square Enix. Now, we are at the point where we've had 1 Duff game out from them this year already in terms of Forspoken. We've had a great game in terms of Final Fantasy 16. We're now going into the era where we got another Duffer coming up in terms of Foam Stars, right? And then we finally pick it back up at the start of 2024 with the second part of Final Fantasy 7. What do you feel, you know, in terms of like looking on for the future, if you were in Square Enix's shoes, if you were put in this charge of the CEO and you had to turn the ship around and stop the share price going down, what would you kind of do to be able to fix this leaky boat?
I think we're going to find ourselves in a striking distance kind of situation where you're going to find out on LinkedIn that a couple of names have been let loose because Foam Star, jeez, are we looking forward to that? Coming from Final Fantasy, as much as I'm not a fan, and I definitely boohoo it, because I didn't personally enjoy it. It has mass appeal, and I know a lot of people are very, very passionate about the Final Fantasy series. Good or bad, people will buy it, and they buy it in their droves. But when it comes to a Splatoon take with foam, where are you guys going? We know games cost money. They cost a lot of money these days. Out the wazoo they cost. And if they fail, they have an immediate effect on the company that's producing them. And yeah, it's gonna matter. We're gonna be reading about this again in a couple of months now. When Foam Star comes out, we're going to see that share price drop even further. So we're going to be hearing the boo-hoos on that. And then our takes on it, because we're quite negative on the game, might be completely different. But we'll make sure to do our digging on it. But that's my 2 cents on it. I don't know about yourself, Spence.
I mean, yeah, for me, I think in the future, it's just a bit of a mess at the moment. I feel like they've developed Foam Stars without even knowing why it does well on the Switch as Splatoon. I feel like they've just thought, oh, PlayStation doesn't have an equivalent for that. So let's just make one. Nintendo consoles, the Nintendo Switch, is a console for children. That's why Splatoon does gangbusters. It's a console for kids. We're playing God of War. We're playing Spider-Man. We're playing Horizon. We're playing big boy games. We don't want no Foam Stars. I feel like they've just made it because there's a gap in the market without doing any research into why it sells as well as it does on Nintendo. And they've just thought to do that. And they also just keep doing this thing where they're milking existing IP, such as like that Final Fantasy VII Soldier game they released. It's just a battle royale, and they've just slapped Final Fantasy VII on there and thought, oh, people milk that, people lap. And no, they didn't, because it's just a mediocre battle royale when Fortnite, Apex already exist with mobile versions as well. Why would people even think to do it? Like, Final Fantasy's great and all, but no one wants a battle royale of Final Fantasy. It's not. That's the wrong market for your game. Take the IP elsewhere. I think they've just had a lot of mixed communication and a lot of horrible pitches in the meetings, and they thought, let's do it anyway. So I just think they just need to lean more towards their actual proper games and stop trying to milk their own IPs. Just make FF7 Remake Part 2 as good as you can, and focus on your big hitters. No more Forspoken, no more making annoying games, no more trying to milk stuff. Just do what you do best, and maybe add some DLC to FF14. And then there you go. Lovely. Job done. Easy.
As much as we're very negative on them trying something new, I do appreciate people putting themselves out there, because every shot you don't take is a miss. Now, let's fast forward 6 months, and Foam Star is the biggest game ever. Everyone's playing it. Everyone's got the Foam Star t-shirts. We've got our PCs, our PlayStations all branded. We've got the pop figures. We've bought all the merch for it. It could happen, guys. Now, are they in a position to start doing this with games that cost this much money? Probably not, are they? I think it's a bad decision, me personally, but I'm open. Let's see what happens with it. Let's pick this back up after Foam Stars comes out.
Yeah, I think you guys very much hit the nail on the head. I think that the thing is with Square Enix, this isn't new. They mess up all the time. They really famously mishandled how like their whole relationship with Crystal Dynamics in terms of the Tomb Raider games, really famously mishandled that. The Guardians of the Galaxy, the game, didn't sell very well, which was a damn shame, because that was actually a really, really good game. A really
incredible
good
game.
Yeah, amazing.
Really good. Really good.
I think that the thing is they need to look back, and that I think they need to do what Capcom have done to be able to steer the ship around. You think about the state that the game that can't be mentioned was in, right? And how they managed to take that from 6, which was total trash fire, and then turn it around to 7, and then have all these remakes. The secret is you've got fucking 16 Final Fantasy games there. Start fucking remaking a shitload of them. Start doing the Final Fantasy 7 treatment for 9. This is the game that people are crying out for to get remade. It's a fucking amazing game, an absolute seminal game from the PlayStation 1. The last one of the trilogy that came to PlayStation 1 in terms of 7, 8, 9. Go back to the fucking well and remake that. Make it faithful. You don't have to do too much in terms of, you don't have to go to the same level you're going with Final Fantasy 7. Just make it very, very faithful. and put it out. Just really spruce it up in terms of graphical content, but keep the same game, and everyone will fucking buy it. They will buy it. You don't have to put the same level in that you've done for Final Fantasy VII, where it's spaced over 4 games. You don't need to. You could just put out the same game again, but really fucking nice looking, like the same way that like Demon Souls did it. Just do that, and you have got license to print cash. And then when that's a success, great. Go back. Do like Final Fantasy IV. I've never played that. It's supposed to be an amazing game, one of the best. Never experienced it. Instead of putting out just the kind of port they did to PlayStation 4, where it's just the same game that you've known before, but now you can quick resume and you can fast forward and you can speed up the battles. Just make it look pretty and put it out again, and people will fucking buy it. And then use that money to be able to take chances and to take risks, instead of doing it when you're on a fucking death's door and then you chuck out a risk to Foam Stars and to Forspoken and hope for the best. Because you've got no insurance. Your insurance is Final Fantasy 16. And when it's limited to one platform, it cannot possibly have the market spread that you want it to have. Even the best-selling games on this console are like, what, maybe 20 million? And that's like the best. That's like the best you can get. Like Spider-Man ain't going to be moving like 40, 50 odd million units. It's not going to, because it's going to be on the PlayStation 5. So it physically can't. We got 40 million out there. You need to get your ducks in line. I think somebody at the top of Square Enix, like you were saying, Phil, is going to walk. And they need to get some fresh eyes on this, and they need to really put their money where their mouth is and put out some quality games and just have it on a consistent basis, that you think of them the same way we do with Capcom. You don't want to be going down. Another year from now, we could be looking at them the same way we look at Ubi. And you don't want that. So they definitely need to do something to right the ship on that end. But that's been our thoughts on this. I would love to hear from you. If you want to interact with the show, you can write into the email pswetrust@gmail.com. You can reach out to us on Twitter @InPSWeTrust. Or if you're watching on YouTube, you can put a like on the video and, of course, put something in the comments. And we will pick these up for the next episode.